Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to G Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. And yeah, we're looking at 102 degrees right now. That's at 4:45. Whoop, just jumped to 103. And that was on a breeze. So yeah, it's hot out there. It was 108 earlier, and I figured that was a good temperature. I went outside and poured concrete, and I got that all done. Yeah, you want to know why I'm pouring concrete in this heat? Well, it wasn't a big pour, it was a little one. And I'm going to take you over there right now and show you what it was. Did my laundry the first thing this morning so that I could get the discharge water from the washer and use that for mixing the concrete instead of using my fresh water. You got to do things like that when you're off-grid, so that's one of G Bear's off-grid ways. All right, look at how this thing's grayed up already. And yeah, I put my date on the end of it here, and I'll pull the forms first thing in the morning. You're asking yourself, well, what's that for? Well, Andy's coming out, like I said, and this is where he parks his motorhome when he comes out. These are the two pads that his front tires go on to level his motorhome so that he's fairly level while he's parked here. Well, he always had to step out of his door on the motorhome into the dirt or put that board down there or put a rug down there. All those things that blow away in the wind, you know. So I decided I was going to be nice to him and put a concrete pad there. So when he comes out of his motorhome, he's got a concrete pad to step on. And if he wants to still put his rug on top of that, he can do that. But if it blows away, it's not my fault, right? All right. Yeah, I got my hand truck here, and this is that metal extra rack I made that comes up higher from way back when I used to unload my 20-gallon water bottles from the trailer, and then I have to move them around out here where I could disperse or transfer the water. So I had this thing set up so it was the same height as the trailer, and it was easy just to roll those things off or slide them off right onto this rack and then move them to where I wanted to go. All right, so I'm looking at my note as we go here. Oh yeah, another thing I did was put up a new flag, and I put up a new rope. The other rope had broken in 4 different places. It had knots in it. And I just didn't trust it anymore, because if it comes out of that pulley up on the top, the only way to restring it is going to be to take the flagpole down. And that's a hassle, especially in the wind. So how did I get the new rope up through the pulley without having to take the flagpole down or go up there with a ladder or anything like that? Quite simple, my dear. Let's see. Sherlock used to say that to whatever his partner's name was. Anybody remember? All right, so what I did was I have some of this super fine wire laying around. So I took the end of the rope from the old rope and I wrapped this around it, and I put it end to end with the new rope, and then I finished wrapping this around the new rope. So it was with that wrapped around, it covered probably about 3/4 of an inch. Then I just pulled the old rope out as I pulled the new rope up and through the pulley and then back down again, and then I cut it off the length. And I gave a little extra here because I usually like to sock this down like that so that in the really bad weather, it's got that little extra hold on it other than just the figure 8 tie off. All right, so I got that done. Let's see. Oh yeah, we're gonna go down to the garden house. I was in there this morning, and I knew it was gonna be another hot one. It was nice when I got up this morning. It was only 70 degrees, and I'd actually fallen asleep on top of the covers with a window open, and the cool breeze was blowing in, and I was sleeping so well, I didn't even wake up to cover up until first thing this morning. I said, oh, all of a sudden I'm chilly. So I pulled a blanket up over me, and then I rolled over and I looked at the clock and I went, oh, geez, it's time to get up anyway. All right, so here we are in the garden house, and I have corn everywhere. All my corn has come up. There's a whole bunch of them around here. They're everywhere. Now let's move down a little further here. Yep, got a whole bunch of them here. Move down a little further. Got more down here. Oh yeah, I'm going to have corn. So anyway, I wanted to show you that. Tomatoes, boy, the heat, this extra heat has really been socking it to them. I'm going to have to prune these down and get some of these extra branches off of them so that they can utilize the water to the best of their ability. I did go through with my toothbrush again earlier. I now have the long hose coming around the floor here, and it's doubled back to this point, and it's all the way down there by the green bag. And I can reach everything all the way around the corner down here with that one. Then I have the other one on the other side, the shorter one that I was having to pull through the garden all the time. I have that over here, and it's doubled back from that point right there back to the first post. So that will reach all the way to the end corner here to my avocado tree. So I can get everything on this side spot watered, and with the other one I can go on the other side without having to drag a hose through the center of this, because I got to pick a cucumber there. It's starting to yellow a little bit, but I think I'll just pickle that one. And I could use a couple of pickles for my lunches. And my watermelon is really starting to do some ground cover here. And you heard me talk about it once before. This plant right here is called purslane. And it has some good medicinal properties for settling your stomach, things like that. It's a succulent. You can break off a branch, stick it in the ground, and it'll propagate and grow another plant. I've got a few of them growing through in here, and these things are really good. You can put them in a salad, eat them just raw like I'm eating them. Just delicious. Anyway, you can see my cantaloupe is all running all the way down through here, and somewhere right in this area, I should have made note of it earlier, but I have a little cantaloupe about that big popped out of one of the legs here. I don't see it right now. I saw it from the other side. But yeah, hopefully that's going to produce some. Peppers are looking good. All right, so we're done with that. Wanted to cover that. I got the concrete, my laundry. I did the flag and the rope. I did the corn growth. And now we're going to move to electricity, off-grid. A few more tips and hints and guides. Oh yeah, I did put the second 100-foot hose, 3/4-inch hose down here, and it's just hanging over the top of the blue barrels. So it's approximately 200 feet from the first blue tank barrel on my water tank down to these three blue barrels. 200 feet. Good run. All right. So we're going to move over here to the electricity, because I was chatting through email with Forever North Sanctuary. North was talking about blowing fuses, blowing 200 amp fuses. And I couldn't figure out why he's blowing 200 amp fuses. I asked, where in the heck are you putting those fuses? What's going on here? Well, apparently somebody on YouTube told him he should put one on his between his main battery cable and his inverter. Why? What are you trying to protect? That's not going to protect anything except the cable. And it's not going to do anything for the cable, because he only has 4 of these 6-volt batteries. his are rated more amp hours than mine. They're double the amp hours. So these are 220 amp hours each. So even though I tied two together in series, it's still only 220 amp hours. So you don't add them until you start adding them in parallel. So that's 220, that's 220, that's 220. So basically he has 1, 2, 3, 4 batteries. But his are like 440, I think he said. So 480, somewhere in there. Let's say 480. Okay, so when he ties that one to that one in parallel, that's 960 amp hours. Okay, so you take the 960 and divide it by 12 volts. And that's going to tell you, I'm sorry, you're going to multiply times 12 volts. 12 volts times amps. Volts times amps equals watts. And that's going to tell you how many watts you have available. But that's at 12 volts. You're going to step up to 10 times that going through this inverter. But anyway, you're still looking at 1,500 and something amps that's coming off of those batteries. Well, what makes you think a 200 amp fuse on this big heavy cable is going to do anything except blow every time you start feeding power through it? You got more amps going through it than the rating of the fuse. That's the misuse of fuses. People put fuses where they don't need them. You don't need a fuse between your battery bank and your inverter. Most good inverters like this one have a built-in fuse right there. There's a fuse there. See, fuse. Okay, there's a fuse there. Okay, so there's two fuses right here that protect this unit from a surge. You're not going to get a surge. You got 12 volt batteries. The only thing you can put into this thing is 12 volts. I don't get it. Why are people putting fuses in there? You don't need it. I've been running this now for over 3 years without a fuse in that line, and my line isn't even warm. Okay? So heat is what tells you whether something is overloaded or not. That wire is not even warm, even though it's 100 degrees out here. That wire is not even 100 degrees. Okay? So you don't need a fuse there. Now also, this inverter by PowerJack has a built-in alarm system in it. If your batteries drop down below 11 volts, the alarm will sound. It's a ear-piercing eeeeee. It drives you up the wall. You have to come out, and the first thing you're going to do is unplug everything from your inverter. And then you can shut the inverter down and then find out why your batteries are low. And normally it's because you're putting out more electricity than you're taking in. Okay? So I did go over that. I did put all of this in an email form, but I'm just covering it again for those of you who weren't involved in that email. So you gotta look at it this way. Everybody keeps talking about the amps. My panels put out 5.8 amps. Yes, at 12 volts. That's 12 volts times 5.8 amps gives you your DC wattage. It does not give you what's coming out of the other end of this in 120 volts. That's 10 times higher than what you got there. That's 12 volt, that's 120 volts, that's 10 times higher. So if you got 400 watts in DC batteries, by the time it comes out this end here, you've got 40 watts. That's bottom line. And that's why I said, if you're going to size your system, forget the amps, forget the volts. Well, your volts are going to be determined by whatever your system is, 12 volt, 24 volt, 48 volt, whatever that is, that's where your system is, okay? Your controllers are going to be set for that voltage. You can't use a 12 volt controller for a 48 volt system. It doesn't work. And just because the controller says 12 or 24 doesn't mean you can mix 12 and 24 going in. It's either 12 or 24. So you're either going to choose your battery bank at 24 volts or at 12 volts and put them through your controller. All right, so that's all you can do with that. That's the bottom line. But you don't need to know all of that. I keep telling people, concern yourself with watts. Watts are going to be important to you. So you're going to take your kilowatt meter. You remember I told you about a kilowatt meter. You're going to plug that in to an outlet, and then you're going to plug each item that you're going to be running in your off-grid situation into there, and you're going to press the watt button right there. What button? That button. No, what button? That button. Okay. Who's on first? All right, so you're going to press the watt button. Now you're going to turn each item on, and you're going to, one at a time, and you're going to record its startup and running watts. You want to know that. You're going to put those numbers on a piece of paper, add them all together. If they come out to 400 watts, then you don't want 4 solar panels at 100 watts each. That's only going to equal what you're using. You got to double that. You want 8 solar panels. So now you have enough to keep your batteries, because your batteries are what's running your electrical items, not your solar. The solar is only keeping the batteries charged or charging the batteries back up. So you're going to run off your batteries. So you got to be able to supply 400 watts with your battery bank just to run your 400 watts that you've put on your piece of paper. But if your solar coming in is going to have to double that. So you have to put in 800 watts so that you can not only keep in balance the amount of power you're pulling out of your batteries for everything running in the place, but you also have extra to keep charging the batteries, so the batteries aren't dropping down over time. They're going to stay at the same peak all the way through. So day and night, you're going to see the same readings on your outputs. You know, I got 13.1 up here. That's my input coming in from the solar panels to the batteries right now is 13 volts DC. Okay, and that's good. That's what you want to see. 13 volts is good, because your solar panels are not really 12 volts. They're 17 volts. Their open circuit voltage would be all the way up to like 22 volts or 24 volts. But on a norm, you're going to be at 17 volts on your 12 volt panels. So you need that extra to come through a controller. The controller is going to balance it out and keep it at a voltage that's adequate to charge batteries. It's got to be higher. The voltage coming in has got to be higher than what your batteries are in order to charge them. If you got 12 volt batteries and you're only putting 12 volts of charge to them, you're not going to charge those batteries. It's not going to work. You got to have more voltage going in than the battery is rated at. Okay, so the other thing is batteries can have a weak link. If you have a weak battery in this group, that one weak battery is going to drag all the other batteries down. The other batteries aren't going to charge the weak one up. That one weak battery is going to drag the others down. And it's going to keep dragging them down until it hurts all your batteries the way that one is. So you got to keep track of that. Every now and then you want to disconnect your system and then check your batteries one at a time and make sure that those batteries are all up to peak. If you have a weak battery, a dead cell in one of the batteries, take that out of the system. You'll be better off without it than trying to keep it in there. All right? So you got to remember that. Okay, so we covered misuse of fuses. Don't put fuses where you don't need them. A fuse, like a circuit breaker, is designed to protect something down the line from the power source. Okay, so you take your house, for instance, you're on grid. You got electrical wires coming into the house that goes through a main breaker on the panel and then goes out to different sub-breakers that go to different circuits throughout the house. Each one of those protects a circuit in the house from something that's going to plug into it and be used off of it. So you don't put fuses on your incoming wires up there on top of the pole or where the wires connect to your house. You don't need a fuse up there. You need a fuse after everything after that. So these are my incomings. I don't put a fuse anywhere there. Going out is here, and those go into breakers or fuses. So that's where you're going to protect everything, is from here to whatever the item is, the or fridge or the TV or the computer or whatever you're going to run, that's what you want to protect, not that wire. It ain't going to do anything. And those batteries aren't going to magically change from a 12-volt battery to a 120-volt battery. It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. It'll never happen. They might go from a 12-volt down to a 6-volt or a 4-volt, but they're not going to go up. Okay? So you don't need a fuse in those lines coming in. I don't care what anybody says. If they tell you you do, then they don't know anything about electricity. All right. Fridges and freezers. Okay? There's a big difference between a refrigerator and a freezer. Okay, a refrigerator likes to stay around 37 degrees Fahrenheit. 37 degrees Fahrenheit is ideal for refrigeration. A freezer has to go down to -5 degrees. Now, the difference between the two is a refrigerator, you open all the time also. You open it, you take something out, you put something in, you close it. You do that 30 times a day. Every 24 hours, that refrigerator door is open numerous times. Okay, the refrigerator does not have to drop below 0 each time. It might come up to 40 degrees and then go back down to 37, and your food's still going to be good. A freezer has to maintain -5 degrees. Every time you open a freezer, you let a rush of hot air inside of that thing, and it takes a while for that freezer to kick that hot air back down to the -5 degrees. Okay, so that hurts. Okay? Your freezer has to run from new, has to run 24 hours straight to get down to that 5 degrees. So you open up the freezer, it's like opening the cover on a barbecue when you're trying to roast something inside of there. You let all the heat out. When you put it back on, your gauge has dropped 200 degrees. Now you're going to wait for it to get back up again. Same thing with a freezer. You don't want to be opening that all the time. So don't think of using a freezer as a double-use system for freezing things below and keeping things cold on top for a refrigerator. It's a no-go. You do not want to keep opening that freezer to take stuff out of that should be in a refrigerator. If you're going to use that freezer for considering both refrigeration and freezing, you want to freeze water bottles, put those frozen water bottles in a cooler, use that as your refrigeration, and just keep rotating out those frozen water bottles as needed to keep your refrigeration in your cooler down to the 30-something degrees mark. And you can open that up and close it a bunch of times during the day. The worst that's going to happen is your ice is going to melt, and you'll have to swap them out with the frozen stuff from your freezer. But you're only going to open the freezer once to do that each day. All right? So you open the freezer up. You want to take out a steak for tonight. You take that out in the morning and you put it in the refrigerator to thaw. That's the proper way to do it. You don't take it out 5 minutes before and put it out in the sun to thaw. That's not good. All right? That's all there is for today, everybody. I'm going to close this one off. Don't forget the don't forgets. G Bear signing off.